I'm going to do this post entirely in English because what I have to say is relevant to a broader audience than the one I'm usually speaking to. Right now we know that at least 40 people have died in a wanton act of murder, a massacre, in 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. We know that a certain number of people pre-planned an attack where they went in and shot men, women, and children point blank and streamed the act on social media. We know what this is. If you're a decent person, you know what this is. This is terrorism. And yet, that's not how it's being portrayed right now. That's not the word that is being applied to this massacre, because it doesn't fit a narrative that is being utilized, that is popular in the Western media. And of course, there's no end to the thoughts and prayers that are being sent the way of the victims. There's no end to the surprise, the shock, the horror, the incredulity that, oh, how could this happen? How is this possible? How could these people hate Muslims so much that they were willing to engage in this level of violence? How, oh, how, oh, how? You know what I'm really sick of? I'm sick of your goddamn surprise. This is not the first time that Muslims have been targeted this way in the West, or in what is called the Western civilizations, in these Judeo-Christian civilizations. This is not the first time. This is not the first time that they've been attacked in their place of worship. This is not the first time that we've heard of extremist groups that espouse a particularly violent and virulent and aggressive ideology of hating immigrants and hating Muslims in particular. This is not new anymore. You don't get to be surprised anymore. Do you know why this ideology keeps growing and growing? And I know there are some of you who will be like, oh, well, it's just because all the Muslims are so evil, so of course it's going to create a counter-reaction of people being equally violent. That's bullshit. That's bullshit, and that is you absolving yourself of the responsibility for this massacre. The kind of hatred that is spewed on Western media against Muslims, the kind of generalizations that we hear about Muslims on a daily basis, the narrative that is created about this faith and the people who identify as Muslims, this is evil, and it is perfectly able to explain why so many people in the West have such deep and intense hatreds towards Muslims. You have hate preachers on television talking about the forthcoming Muslim invasion, about how Muslims are going to overrun your societies and how they are going to rape your daughters and murder everybody who doesn't believe what they were. That's the picture people are spreading on your media. That's the kind of image of Muslims that you're allowing to flourish within your societies. And then you have the audacity to come and be surprised when people go out and murder Muslims? I know that one of the reasons we have terrorism in the Muslim world, by the way, let's just remember that the vast majority of victims of Islamic terrorism are Muslims themselves. But that aside, I know why it comes. Because we have had years and years and years of propaganda from outfits like Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and so on and so forth, that have used their religion and their ideology to justify massacres. And I'm telling you, if you don't face this demon that is growing within your societies, if you are not willing to look in the eye the fact that you are not better than all Muslims, that you are not immune to the kind of idiocy, the insanity that we have experienced in the Muslim world, in the developing world of terrorism, you're not immune to this. You're not better than this. And you can see it every day when you see the kind of hateful rhetoric that's being used against Muslims. You cannot escape becoming sponsors of terrorists yourselves unless you're willing to look and admit your complicity in this fake, aggressive and regressive narrative that you have allowed to flourish about Muslims within your societies. You have politicians that have built their entire careers on building this enemy image of all Muslims, irrespective of what they believe and irrespective of how they apply their religion in their life. That's what you've allowed to happen. So I'm sorry. I am upset right now because all terrorist activities, all useless and needless murders of this sort are deeply painful for me as an individual. But I am sick of your goddamn surprise.